Welcome back to Solo Adventures. My name is Livi and I'm here yet again with another game review. Now, this game, like every other game that I have reviewed so far, is an entrant in the BGG Solitaire PnP contest for 2020. So today the game that we are taking a look at is Konkan Trail. This is a game of hand management by which we have to attack various enemy camps, steal their secret plans, and then siege their fort. Now, as usual, if you're not interested in watching me play this game, feel free to skip to the end. Otherwise, let us venture forth. So I'll just show you how we get set up for a game of Konkan Trail. We take all of these little tiles that have scrolls and enemies on them, and you flip them upside down and you mix them up. And you place one on each of these red dots. Now these are going to represent enemy encampments. So the object of this game is we're trying to get from this fort over here to this fort over here, and we need to have two scrolls that are hidden somewhere among the camps. And if we can do that, then we win. So I think the best way to teach you how to play this game is to just get started. So our starting hand is going to consist of 5 cards. 2 soldiers, 2 pandits, which as far as I know are like wise men or scholars, and a boatman. And then you want to shuffle the rest of the cards, which I have done, and you deal out 5 into the recruitment line. Once we've dealt out 5 into the recruitment line, we can get started. So in order to travel, we need to spend cards. We need to spend cards to do really anything in this game. So on any given turn, we can move, restore stamina, or we can fight. We can see here at the bottom of the card which kinds of spaces each unit can move on. So the boatman, of course, moves across water. The pandits can move on paths, and the soldiers can move on paths and forests. And our first possible camp is here, so I think I'm just going to go there. Now we have to be careful because these soldiers are extremely valuable. You need them in order to overpower the enemy if there are enemy soldiers in the camps. Well, I think I'm going to have to spend a soldier as much as I don't want to, because that will just be the fastest way here. So we can spend either 1 or 2 cards per turn. We see here that the soldier has movement of 1, an attack of 4, would restore stamina of 1, and when we play this card we get 2 gold to spend at the end of the round. So I move him 1, 2. We have 2 gold to spend at the end of the round, which is now. Here are the costs of recruitment up here. So as we can see, the villager costs nothing, but the trader costs 4. Seeing as how we only have 2 gold, we can't afford any of these more expensive cards, so I'm just going to take 2 villagers. You can buy as many as you can afford, but you can only ever have 6 cards in your hand. And then refresh. And at the beginning of every turn you also have to move the tracker. So the tracker starts at 6 stamina, and we did 1 turn, so now we begin our 2nd turn. So let's see what's here. Okay, so that's an enemy. And the enemy has a strength of 5. So that means that we need to play a minimum of 5 attack from these cards, but we have to do it with 2 cards or less. So in order to be the most efficient, I'm going to spend a soldier and a villager. If we had not been able to overcome this enemy, no matter what, we still have to spend 1 card, because every action requires at least 1 card, even if we know we're going to lose. If we had lost, then we would have lost 2 stamina, but we win because we have enough attack points. Just get that out of the way. And now we have a total of 3 gold to spend on this turn. I think I'm going to want to buy another soldier. we advance the track. Okay, so we're gonna need to cross the water at some point. Now, water journeys are quite rough on us, so we need to spend 1 stamina per water space we travel. And the most direct path to our next place is here. But it's very expensive to travel in the forest because currently the only units that we have that can travel in forest, it's the soldier right here. We could buy a trader, but he costs 4 gold. It's very expensive. So maybe what I want to do is I will spend my pandit and move 1 space on the path. He will give me 3 gold, and I will buy a boatman. And that's the end of that turn. So when we move to the 4th turn, every time we pass over one of these markers, that means we lose a stamina. So I'm down to 5. So I want to travel down this direction. I have 2 boatmen. Each of them can travel 2 squares each, but I have to travel 3 to get to this path spot. So I will just play them both at once. 1, 2, 3. And we get 4 gold for playing these guys. So I'll buy a trader. End of the turn. I'm going to spend my villager here. He can move 2 spaces, but he can't travel through forests, but we'll just move here. He's worth 1 gold. But I don't have anything here that I can buy for 1 gold, so I'm just going to get these 2 free ones. There's the tribals. These are extremely economical and good for traveling through the wilderness. So and then we have to move our counter. So I'm going to spend the trader, and he can move on forest or path. And he will give us 4 gold when we play him. So we'll go soldier, tribal. Now I have to be really careful here because if I run out of cards in this lane, I'm allowed to shuffle and redeal this discard deck, but only 1 time. Otherwise, if I run out of cards the 2nd time, then I lose the game. So I can't move an attack in the same turn because we can only take 1 action per turn. So I'm going to spend the tribal. Could move 2, but I'm only going to move 1. And there's enemies here too. I get no money for the tribal though. He cost me 1, but I don't get any money back. And we lose 1 stamina. So I'm going to spend a soldier and a villager to defeat this enemy. And then I will have 3 gold to spend. Gonna need another boatman at some point. Alright, so where could our first scroll be? We still don't have one. Let's travel here with the villager. 1, 2. He gives us 1 gold, which we can use for the tribal. Refresh. Move the marker. And then we will use the tribal to move on to this square. Enemy again. So this isn't the most efficient, but I want to save my boatman. So I'm going to spend my soldier and my pandit. So I have an abundance of attack in this case. I have one too many, but that's just how that goes. And I get 5 gold to spend this turn. We'll take this guy, and this guy, and these are free. Getting down to the bottom there. So we begin another turn, and we lose 1 stamina. We're getting kind of low in stamina, so I'm gonna start thinking about which one of these cards I want to spend to get my health back up. So I'm gonna spend a villager and move 2. And next turn we have an enemy again, but I got 1 gold from the villager, so I can buy a tribal and a villager. It's the next round. Let's fight. I do not have enough attack to win this fight. I thought that this would probably be a scroll just based on probability, but it was not. So we just have to spend 1 card at least. We can't win, so I'm just going to spend the villager. And we're down to 1 hit point. We have 1 gold to spend. And we can't buy anything. And that's that. So now we can shuffle our discard pile. So we are in dire need of healing. I think I'm going to spend the trader. Yes, I'm going to spend the trader, get my health up back up to 4, and he gives me 4 gold, so I can just buy another trader. And I will use this trader to travel up to our next fort, and I'm pretty sure this has to be a scroll. So bang. With 4 gold we can buy a soldier and a tribal. What do we have? Yes, a scroll. So it's the start of the next turn, and we only need 3 attack now to take it. Oh, the problem is that the soldier is the only one with an attack of more than 1, and we can only spend 2 cards, so I have to spend my very expensive soldier to take this scroll. And I have 2 gold, my hand is full, but we have 1 at least. Okay, so we start another turn, and I lose another stamina, so I'm down to 3. And I have to, of course, remember that it will cost stamina to cross this river here. So I will spend... one villager. Give me 1 gold. Then I'm going to spend a villager and a no, just a tribal. That's all I need, is to travel these 2 spaces. And it's a scroll, thankfully. But my attack is really not so good, so I'm going to spend my tribal, and we will lose. So I'm down to 1 hit point again. But we have our plans. So this is good. Oh, I hadn't planned for that. Oh, okay, so my stamina ran out. I went from 1 hit point to 0 because I forgot about this tracker. So I have lost on my way to this fort. I'm not entirely sure if we would have made it. Might have, if I had only been thinking ahead. But yeah, that wasn't so clever of me. Anyway, so what do I think about this game? Let's talk about it. So as usual, we're going to talk about the build first. Now, this is a pretty easy build. It's just a board, under 30 cards, and 8 small tokens. Now, these tokens you should probably be really careful with because there is hidden knowledge in this game. You don't want to be able to tell which icon is on which token from the backside, so you have to take great pains to make sure that all of the backs look exactly the same. In my case, I made sure that they were extra thick and extra durable so I wouldn't have to worry about that. But the backs of the cards and the backs of the tokens are all white, so you need to be careful, especially with the tokens. And I guess that's maybe another note that I have about the construction of this game. It's very easy to construct, partly because there are no card backs. So you don't need to worry about duplex printing, you don't need to worry about lining up your backs. As a drawback, however, there are no backs on the cards, which is somewhat unfortunate because the discard pile and the draw pile for like our recruitment lineup, we do see the backs of these cards for a good chunk of this game. So I think it would have been kind of nice if they were at least 10 or had something on them to make them a little bit more interesting. The art style of the game is very utilitarian. It gets the job done. I feel like it does everything that it needs to do. It communicates the different units that you are recruiting into your squad. However, I would have liked to see a little bit nicer art. I would have liked to see a little bit more color. So, the cards like the trader are pretty okay, or the villager is fine. I like how they have, green and purple that kind of differentiate them. However, the soldier is a little bit different because you can hardly see him. His shirt and the background are exactly the same color, and so he kind of fades into the background. I think the colors could have been kicked up a notch a little bit, like the yellow could be made a little bit more vibrant here on the cost for the card, and the kind of tiles that can be traveled over I think could be maybe a little bit more vibrant. Like if the green forested areas were really nice and bright green. And maybe if the path was a slightly different shade. The path is a very similar color to the rest of this card, so it's kind of a nitpick, but I think that this game could be vastly enhanced by a little bit more work in the art department. And I think this is especially true because of the theme. Now, the theme really intrigues me. It takes place somewhere in India, though I'm not sure at what time or, what era or exactly who we are. I would really love to have some background about what is the Konkan Trail, for example. Is it like the Oregon Trail? Probably not, because in this game we're attacking various enemy settlements and we're trying to steal their plans. I want to know who we are. Why are we running around the countryside with various wise men and boatmen and random villagers and soldiers and attacking various camps to steal their plans and then laying siege to a city at the end? I feel like there's a lot of really great story here and I want to know more about it. I feel like there's space for a lot of really great narrative here, and it's just not reflected in the gameplay. It would have been cool maybe if there was sort of like in Coffee Roaster or like in A Feast for Odin, how it includes a separate little sheet that tells you some more about coffee or Vikings depending on the game. So if there was an additional index or an appendix that was kind of explaining maybe the geography or maybe the kind of units that we're taking with us and the reasoning behind why their stamina or their fighting or their movement are the numbers that they are, I think would have been really cool, and I would have really enjoyed that. Also, if we could find out exactly why we are attempting to attack another fort, I would be able to kind of get my feelings in order about how I feel about who we are. Like, are we the bad guys? It kind of seems that way. We're just attacking random villages and stealing their stuff and then attacking a fortress at the end. I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with being the bad guys. I would just like to know basically where I stand in this. I think even just like one short little paragraph at the very beginning giving us a little setup, a little bit of flavor text would have gone a really long way in setting the mood. Speaking of setting the mood though, I do appreciate that the designer did put the work into making the manual look nice, because it's lovely. It's got this wonderful, ignore my highlighting, that's how I learn my games. But it has illustrations, it has this really cool scroll background, and in general, this manual is very good. I had no problem learning how to play this game, and I don't think you'll have any trouble either. It's laid out really well. I don't really see any serious issues with typos or grammar that would make this hard to understand. So, good job here on the manual. So, getting past the aesthetics in the build, what do I think about the gameplay? Well, this is a game that surprised me a little bit. I wasn't entirely sure what I would expect when I was going into this. Reading the manual, I think, doesn't really give you a good reflection of what this game really feels like to play. Now, reading the manual, you might think that this is going to be something kind of simple, just draw some cards and move and attack, but what this really is it's a careful puzzle that requires a lot of thinking. I know the first few times that I played this game, I went through the cards rather quickly and didn't really put a lot of thought into how much money that I was making, and eventually there were places that I got stuck. I couldn't advance any farther because I ran out of cards and I couldn't buy any more cards, so that was that. In the case of my very silly mistake, you also have to pay attention to the round tracker and the stamina loss that occurs because of that. I guess that's really how I would summarize this game the best, is it's a puzzle. I feel like it's a puzzle that is laid out and the cards are like the pieces that you're trying to fit into place. I feel like this game has probably a winning strategy, and maybe once you have the strategy, you will be able to win reliably most of the time. But getting up to the point where you discover that optimal strategy, that is where it's fun. The instructions also include rules for a more difficult game. So even if you manage to solve the puzzle the first time, there are ways to make it harder for yourself, and it's still not entirely guaranteed that you're going to win every time you play, because there is the element of luck in where are the scrolls, where are the enemies. If you can get all of the scrolls immediately, I think this game would be a lot easier. So all in all, what is the verdict on this game? I like this game. I don't know if I would go back to it too many times, but I really enjoyed it for the time that I spent with it. I think it's a really fun little puzzle and it's a quick build, so I think that the amount of fun that you get from it is proportionate to the amount of work that you have to put into making this game. Quick to build, quick to play, maybe it doesn't have so much replay value, but it's fun and it's free. I do, however, feel that with a little bit more polish, this game could be really elevated to the next level. I have an image in my head of a much bigger board with maybe event cards that you have to draw. Maybe the simplicity of the game as it is right now is already really a good thing, but I think that you could take this basic system of management and you could really crank it up a notch. If you like little puzzles, I think this game might be for you, so check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and also if you want to help support the channel, you can check out my Patreon. My patrons get to find out what videos I'll be releasing before anybody else knows, and I will be having exclusive updates for my patrons. Going forward, I'm hoping to have a lot of neat little perks like voting rights and the ability to choose what videos that I make next. I just want to send another shout out and a big thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you very much. So until next time, take care of yourself.